All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this latest What's New video covering software version 883. We do actually have a whole lot of stuff to go over. You'll notice off the bat, nothing looks radically different. This release was really focused on a lot of under-the-hood items, really improving functionality, improving the intuitive nature of the program, and also enhancing reporting and a bunch of other stuff. So we're sort of excited to get into it. It's a bit more of a grab bag than the last release, for instance, which saw our massive user interface improvement. We've really been focused on a lot of different areas, so you'll just have to bear with me as I bounce around on a couple of different items. But what I'm going to do is basically walk through just the major elements on the release notes and go ahead and talk about them. And of course, we'll go over some of those new functions as well. Probably one of the single biggest areas of improvements is reports. So all of our inspection reports, everything looks the same, right? All of our inspections are the same. When you run an inspection, you have the opportunity to create a report. All of that's the same. However, the first thing that we did is we went through all of the reports and significantly improved them. So by that, we mean we really improved the types of data we're capturing. So we did used to have a smaller header with some information, but we have about twice as much information up here, including the inspection type. So what was the inspection? So we'll indicate the function that you use to inspect, the inspection date, inspection time was there before, software, job, so on and so forth, brightness, focus. We have a lot of very important parameters that you will capture as you are doing the inspection. So it used to be the case that these were not captured in the report. Now they are. Of course, the default filter amount, the filter amount, and now we include all of the errors. And one important thing is we output this in a CSV format. So you'll notice that the file extension is still TXT. So what that allows you to do is open it really quickly and easily in a text editor if you need to. But it is in a comma separated format, which means I can go to Excel and open the same file and have it actually delimited out. So I have my error information in a way that can be used for some more statistical number crunching. So again, that's useful with things like Gerber comparison check. It becomes very useful with things like display range of blue spots, where you want to get sort of a statistical understanding of what's happening on your object. Same thing is if you're doing like excess raster check or aperture area check. If you're doing an area inspection, it sort of gives you the opportunity to extract a bell curve from that. So all of the reports have seen this improvement. Every single report can now be opened in Excel and is delimited. Every report has all of the errors listed instead of just 20 that were listed previously. And the header information has been improved for every report. The next major enhancement, and this one is a big one we're very excited about, is we created a new function called Export Inspection History. And what this does is this will export all of the inspection history from now on. And we track that not in the software folder. We actually track it in in another folder on your hard drive. I'll go ahead and show you where it is, just so you know. If you go to the C drive and Epson CNT. So we're starting to track a lot of information in there, including, we'll get into some other stuff later, but we're tracking your inspection information in here. So that means every inspection that's done on this system from this point forward is tracked in that folder. So if at any given time I want to pull the history of it, I can run this function and it will extract a spreadsheet that looks like this. And we'll just take a second to go through that. So on the left side, we've got our inspection date. So this is the date where the inspection occurred, and this does have both the date and the time. Top here, we've got, or the second column, we've got the actual software version. So you can see if you are running different versions of software, you can see which version of software was used. Inspection type. So what was the actual inspection function? Were you using aperture area check, excess raster, and so on? Your inspection time. how long did that inspection take? So for instance, this inspection was 2.3 minutes from the point of scanning to the generation of the report. And we have actual links to the reports. So I'm not sure any of these are active, but I can go ahead and give this one a shot. Nope, I've deleted these. So as long as you don't delete the file after you create it, then that link will remain active. But basically, whenever you create a report, just by, in the software, when you go inspection, create report, it's going to generate, it's going to log that location and generate a link to it. So from this from this inspection history report, I can actually open up a given inspection report, which is pretty cool. We have number of errors, of course, what the job name was, the path of the job, the layer, and then we actually have a link to the job. So again, if the job hasn't changed and the job is still there, you can mouse over and actually click on and open up that job in your ScanCAD software. Image type, did we scan in color or black and white? Brightness, focus, GL value, lighting if we're using reflective or transparency unit. X and Y size of the scanned area, and X and Y size of the inspected area, and resolution. So we're capturing all of those parameters. We have the image date, we have the calibration date, so we know either if something was not calibrated or actually if it was calibrated at a given time. And then once we start moving to the right of that, we have all of our different inspection parameters. So you can see minimum spot, that's for certain inspections. Number of apertures, inspect for extra apertures. This gives us just a huge amount of information for our inspection reports, in terms of our inspection history. That is our inspection history. Again, very powerful, and that is not going to go away when you upgrade software because it's stored in that C drive. The only thing is if you do change computers, you'll want to migrate that Epson CNT drive over to your new computer because that has all of your inspection history in it. So that's a really significant area of improvement. Also, on the inspection side of the aisle, we went ahead and added an option to set a password for learning operator mode. So as you know, learning operator mode allows you to really limit the sort of menus options that are available in the software. And in order to get out of that, now you need a password. And of course, with that, you have the opportunity to change that password. So that is a brand new option in order to help sort of focus the software experience for different operators and different user types. All right, now we'll migrate over into just some general improvements. You'll see that we removed the .lo1 from the title. That also flows into like move and delete just to make it a little bit easier to look at. So we're really just looking at the job name there to simplify that a little bit. Next up, and probably the really, really big one of the really big efforts for this year is we went through a lot of the different functions and the way that they interact with each other and just really tried to clean stuff up and simplify. So in other words, it used to be the case that if you had an active function, like let's say you were actively, you had a shape on your cursor and maybe you didn't know that, and you tried to do another function, there would be a conflict. So the software wouldn't crash by any means, but it would beep at you. It would make a little boop and you wouldn't know what was going on. We went through all of those different interactions and either A, automatically aborted the previous function so you could do the next thing. B, popped up not an error message, but a warning message letting you know that the next thing that you wanted to do would abort the previous function and asking if you wanted to move forward. So that there's more visibility in terms of what's happening in the software. And the last option, the C in that scenario, is that we would modify, or we'd write something on the status line down at the bottom. So we'd let you know, hey, there's something going on down here. so that you're always aware of what you're doing and the software isn't just beeping at you expecting you to know something. And that was a really significant effort. I would say there's probably over 2,000 different interactions that we went through to really clean that up. So that, it's one of those really behind the scenes things. It's not a really glossy, glitzy sort of improvement. At the same time, thousands of interactions are now improved to the point where it's really clear what's going on and what you're doing. And it just makes the software a lot easier to use on a day-to-day basis. So we're really, really, really happy about that. In sort of a similar method, we went through and completely redid a lot of the different messages and micro help lines. Also, this is probably several hundred and maybe close to 1,000 micro help lines that we did. An example is if I go to align image and let's go to program alignment points, we improved all of these little messages down at the bottom to really try to clearly indicate what you're supposed to do. And they change between, if a function requires multiple inputs, they'll change. So this one I think is the same, but if the function requires, a couple different inputs, then this line down here will change. So that is several hundred functions have been updated to really, really help indicate exactly what needs to be done and what the software is looking for after you've started a function. The next general item is all of our shapes. So our shape library is now stored in that Epson CNT folder on the C drive. So that means all of the different shapes that you've created, those are going to be carried forward, and they're not going to need to be moved every time you upgrade software. And the same thing goes with calibration information. So a lot of that is centralized, so you don't have to continue to redo that every time you upgrade your software release. All right, and then the next thing is to get into some reverse engineering type items. Probably the first and the biggest thing to note that's going to change workflows is if we go to our align image environment, you'll notice that we broke out our reference point function. And we broke it out into two functions. One's called program alignment points and then select alignment points. And these, they used to be combined into the same function, and it used to be the case that on layer 1, it would program them, meaning it would determine, like, these are the alignment points I'm going to use. And then on anything other than layer 1, you would just select those points and it would manipulate the image to match layer 1. That wasn't really clear. Plus, it wasn't a super flexible system. So we just broke it out into two functions. So at any given time and on any given layer, you can either program your alignment points, which means you're picking points on something that you feel is already straight, or you're selecting them, meaning you are selecting alignment points that you are going to use to align the active layer to wherever you have programmed those alignment points. Now, along with this is the fact that on other layers in the future, on layers other than layer 1, we don't force you to have set your reference or programmed your alignment points first. So again, you'll probably remember that when you want to scan in layer 2 or anything else, we used to require that you had set reference points. Even if you were going to use raster rubber overlap or something like that, we made you have those reference points. Now we don't. You can scan without having those reference points, and just do it later. So this allows you, it's actually really nice. So if you're in like layer 2, for instance, and you find that your alignment points aren't working, you can go ahead and pop up your layer 1 raster, and you can program your alignment points, hit program. You can pick those two alignment points, and then switch over to your layer 2 raster, and then go to select alignment points, and pick your new alignment points and have it align, and then make sure that they're good and straight, and then move on. So it eliminates a lot of the back and forth that you used to have to do if you needed to reprogram your alignment points, which we see as just a huge improvement. So that's a big deal right there. Couple new functions. Let's get into it. First one to note is what we call vertex line in window. And, it's sort of the case where a lot of times in electronics, you'll have arrays of vertices like these where you have, a couple tracks coming down, and they all really should pitch over at the exact same point in a given axis. But our given tool set right now, unless you're using a grid, makes it really difficult to do that. And as you guys probably know, there's not always grids in place. So what you can do now is you can draw a window around a bunch of vertices like this, put your cursor where you want that to happen. So let's call it right there. Now let's, to make it a more dramatic example, let's move it over there. And then either hit Tab to get your mouse or just hit V for vertex and select line in window. And what it does is it moves all those vertices in a line aligned with your cursor in a given window. So that's a really useful function when you have arrays like this, or also, arrays like this as well. So again, we can just run the function again, vertex line in window, and it just does that. So that's a new small function for us to play with. Next up, we actually allow you to export your drill now without having to program drill holes. So let's go to a drill layer here real quick. No, yeah. What if I have that? Good. All right. So if you've got your drill layer, and if you have not programmed holes in your aperture table, so like this, I've got my circle here. It's a 45 mil pad, but I don't have a hole programmed. If you've not done that for any of your drills, you can just go straight to File, Export, Drill, and it'll use the pad diameter as your drill size. So that's just sort of convenient. We do have another new function called Scan Measure Job, Export Scan Measure Job, and this will export whatever this image is, the one that you have loaded, the active layer, as a new standalone Scan Measure Job to be measured and annotated. Some other cool stuff in the assembly environment. If I turn assembly on, I've got ref ID on cursor, and I've got my display modes here. So I can toggle through my different display modes. So hide, gray, back to my gray, and then hide, window, gray. So that's really nice. It used to be the case that you have to go to display up here. And then if I do ref ID on cursor, you'll see nothing happens, but as soon as I snap to a component, I actually see the ref ID on my cursor. So this is useful for a couple of reasons. It's useful if you are doing quality check, and you're just skipping through, but it's also useful if for some reason you're manually doing silkscreen. And every time you snap to a new component, like I hit N for next, N for next, N for next, it's going to go ahead and show you that that reference ID on your cursor. So that is a pretty neat tool that is brand new. And again, right on that status line in the assembly environment. And another thing in the assembly environment that we have changed is the sorting. So let's go back to assembly on. If I click on my assembly file and I sort by ref ID, we have fundamentally changed. It used to be the case that, I don't know if you remember, the sorting was sort of alphanumeric, but it would go from C1 to C10 to C11 to C12. So now it is a straight up alphanumeric sort where, C1 is first, and then after C9 you have C10. So it's, again, it's a small thing, but it's just a nice improvement to our sorting algorithm to make that a lot more intuitive. And that flows through not just to the assembly file, but also to, if you want to jump to ref ID, that flows through to there as well, and a couple other functions. And one other major thing I'd like to mention is that now, if you go to Start and you scroll down to your ScanCAD folder, in there you will find a utility to update your USB key. So if you click on that, that's actually going to ask you to locate your .dat file. So we're going to start just sending the authorized .dat files and not the package with the remote update program and the authorized .dat. Just a nice little way to simplify updating the USB keys. So that is our release. We thank you guys for bearing with us as we worked on it. It really took a long time to go through all of those different interactions. Stuff like that is a lot less dramatic than major user interface overhauls in terms of the visual appearance, but it's a lot more work. So we appreciate you guys bearing with us, and we're excited to share the new release with you. And as always, if you guys have any questions, send us an email and we'll get right back with you. Thanks a lot and have a great day.